Dear ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to present progress of Slovakia towards fulfilling our economy-wide reduction target. I also want to thank parties who submitted questions to Slovakia within the preparatory phase of the multilateral assessment process. Firstly, let me shortly introduce our country. The slide provides essential facts and information regarding the Slovak Republic, a rather smaller country within population almost 5.5 million located in Central Europe. Regarding the NDC, I would like to highlight that it represents a collective effort of all 27 member states of the European Union, encompassing the economy-wide net domestic reduction target of at least 55% in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 compared to 1990. Since 1990, our net greenhouse gas emissions decreased by over 50% in 2022. This represents a 12% reduction compared to 2021. Total greenhouse gas emissions encompassing the LULUCF sector has shown a continuous decline from the baseline year, exhibiting a more stable trend in recent years. Notably, significant drops occurred in 2019 and 2020, attributed to the unique circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic and other substantial shifts within Slovak economy. Following an anticipated increase in 2021, emissions once again decreased in 2022. This substantial reduction in emissions primarily stems from a robust, although temporary, decrease in economic activities, followed by economic restructuring, the implementation of new and modern efficient technologies, a reduced reliance on the energy-intensive industry, and increased contribution of services to GDP generation. An important exemption is the transport sector, predominantly road transport, which has experienced increasing emissions. Based on the WEM scenario, the ambitious EU target of 55% reduction will not be achieved by 2030. We recognize the imperative for further new measures to realize more profound emission reductions. These slides demonstrate that Slovakia has successfully achieved a continuous decoupling of emissions and GDP growth trajectories, alongside a consistent reduction in emissions. Since the late 90s, carbon intensity has decreased by nearly 45%, indicating a clear transition towards a more efficient and environmentally conscious economy. This advancement is attributed to industrial restructuring and substantial improvements in energy efficiency. This trend is anticipated to persist as Slovakia progresses towards carbon neutrality. The next slide illustrates the trend in per capita greenhouse gas emissions, demonstrating an absolute decrease from 13.9 in 1990 to 60.8 in 2022. These indicators suggest that recent shifts in Slovakia's carbon intensity are primarily attributed to structural and technological advancements rather than demographic factors. The reduction observed in 2020 was significantly influenced by extraordinary events, including the COVID-19 pandemic, the energy crisis, and adjustments in fuel pricing policies. Notwithstanding these short-term impacts, sustained long-term progress will necessitate ongoing technological innovation and the decarbonization of energy-intensive industries. The emission reductions are caused also by the ambitious climate energy policies and targets of the European Union. The European Climate Law sets a binding target for the EU to reduce net greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by 2030 compared to 1990 levels and reach net zero emissions by 2050. The ESR establishes mandatory annual greenhouse gas emission targets for member states, encompassing sectors such as transport, buildings, agriculture, waste, and non-ETS industries. Each member state is assigned a single emission reduction target for all emissions falling under the ESR's scope. LULUCF. The LULUCF regulation introduces a target of 42 megatons CO2 equivalent in additional removals, calculated against the 2016 and 2018 average as reported in 2020. This 42 megaton CO2 equivalent was subsequently allocated to member states based on the management land area reported by each member state. Next slide illustrates mitigation actions, policies and measures across various sectors, of which I will highlight a few. In Slovakia, the energy sector presents the most significant opportunity for greenhouse gas emission reductions, primarily through the adoption of renewable energy sources and enhanced energy efficiency. Within the industrial processes and product use, so-called IPPU sector, emission reductions are largely attributed to initiatives within the steel and cement industries, specifically the increased utilization of low-carbon technologies and improved process efficiency. The transport sector prioritized the development of biofuels with substantial greenhouse gas savings and the advancement of low-emission vehicles and electromobility. The comprehensive policy framework addressing climate change in the Slovak Republic integrates European climate strategies and policies with targeted national measures. These measures focus on critical areas encompassing the low-carbon strategy, the National Energy and Climate Plan NECP, the National Emission Ceiling, the Environmental Policy Strategy, the National Emission Reduction Program, the National Reform Program 2023, biofuel policies, and the taxation of energy products and electricity. The cessation of coal-fired electricity generation in Slovakia was achieved through the decommissioning of the Nováky power plant in 2023 and the Vojany power plant in 2024. These closures represent a significant achievement in the nation's energy transition. With support from the Just Transition Fund, both regions are now implementing new heating systems that utilize renewable energy sources such as biomass, solar, and mine water heat pumps. Notably, in the Upper Nitra, over 50% of the heat supply is now derived from the renewable sources. The collective potential for emission reduction from these initiatives is projected to exceed 1.45 million tons of CO2 annually. The Home Renovation Project and the Home Renovation Mini support schemes are specifically designed to aid lower-income households, thereby mitigating energy poverty. These initiatives constitute an ambitious yet time and scope limited program for the renovation of family houses. Their objective is to improve energy efficiency and residential properties and facilitate adaptation to the adverse effects of climate change. These schemes are projected to facilitate the renovation of up to 45,000 family homes by June 2026 toward both partially and comprehensive upgrades. The supplementary Renovate Home Mini scheme provides funding for select insulation measures, window replacements, and the installation of new heating systems, offering financial rates up to 100% of costs and allowing for advanced disbursement. While substantial reductions have been achieved since 1990, the existing policies and measures in place by 2022, as outlined in the with existing measures scenario, indicate that the ambitious EU target of 55% reduction will not be made by 2030 in Slovakia. Conversely, the with additional measures scenario projects the achievement of the 2030 target, with emissions falling well below the 33 megatons threshold required. It is important to note that Slovakia has implemented further PAMs aimed at reducing emissions since the publication of the biennial transparency report. The transport and agriculture sectors have presented particular challenges in their emission reduction pathways. The with additional measures scenario represents a decarbonization pathway aligning with the findings presented in the available draft of Slovakia's National Energy and Climate Plan NECP. The VAM scenario has also been updated to incorporate the most recent input data from operators and other relevant parameters. Last but not least, this slide details Slovakia's contribution to developing nations. Slovakia has providing substantial support and cooperation as a core component of its foreign policy, establishing the Slovak Official Development Assistance Mechanism. Slovakia's public support totaled €37 million between 2021 and 2023. Notably, Slovakia's financial contributions via bilateral and multilateral channels rose from €10.5 million in 2021 to €50.5 million in 2023. During the 2021 and 2022 period, Slovakia supported 120 projects focused on capacity building or a combination of capacity building and technology transfer.